It's sprint review time. The sprint review is the moment in which the Scrum team is showing what they did in the last sprint to the product owner. The product owner finally has the control and starts to test the functionalities. Wrong. That's not what it's supposed to do. A lot of time in practice, what I just said is how the sprint reviews look like, but in this video I'm going to show you what a sprint review should actually contain and how it should happen. So let's get started. Hi everyone, my name is Anka, I'm an Agile coach and welcome to my channel. In this channel I'm releasing an educational video every Tuesday on Agile, on tools that you can use to deliver better and faster products. And if you are new to this channel, please consider to subscribe, click on the bell button to get notification anytime there is a new video. Now let's jump into the sprint review. Now in this video I'm going to answer 12 questions for you in which we aim to have more clarity about what is it a sprint review. According to the Scrum guide, the sprint review is the inspection of the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations. This sounds a bit big words. Well, inspection of the outcome means the work completed. Future adaptations means what is the feedback that we receive from our sprint review during our sprint review in order to know what to plan in the future sprint planning. But for us to have valuable input, that means we need to have the right people inside the meeting. So who participates? Inside the sprint review, we have the Scrum team in one hand, the product owner and the stakeholders. Because the stakeholders are the ones that are going to tell us, is it relevant for them, the functionality? Do they have any input? Do they have any suggestions on how to make certain functionalities better? And we take this feedback and that we use it as an input for our sprint planning. Makes sense, right? Now, let's imagine that we don't have the stakeholders inside the meeting room and the Scrum team presents to the product owner. What is going to happen? Well, we are kind of missing the point because we may end up with stories that are demonstrated, but they don't meet correctly what the product owner had in mind, and then there is a huge misunderstanding and we have to redo the work. Basically, miscommunication in the team that doesn't bring us much value to have a sprint review. That's why it's important that the product owner has seen the functionalities before the sprint review, that is comfortable with demonstrating them, because that means that he or she has accepted, is familiar with it and meets the expectations. And that is a big added value inside our team. So let's start with the questions. Question number 1, what is the purpose of the sprint review? The whole purpose of the sprint review is to get feedback from the stakeholders of the work completed. Completed work means that that piece of functionality is available to be used if we decide so. And then we can gather feedback. Question number 3. Why don't use this time for the sprint review to make a demo to our product owner? Well, here is the thing. You can make a demo to your product owner, but then you're going to most probably... Question number 3. Isn't the sprint review a demo for the product owner? Why not? Well, no, it is not. And here is the thing. If the product owner is seeing the functionality for the first time and may have some tiny improvements, it is already too late to make these improvements, and any improvements, even they are tiny, like changing some text, doing some adaptations that otherwise we will be able to do during the sprints, then we are going to carry over these ones to the next sprint, and then we will wonder, what do we do? Is this a story? Is it a bug? And we have some weird discussions. That's why the product owner should have a demo far before the sprint review, should be comfortable with the scope, and should be confident on the quality that the functionalities developed have. Then question number 4. If sprint review is not a demo for the product owner, then when the product owner gets his or her demo? The product owner gets the demo as the functionalities are getting developed. Of course, you may say, well, I don't have the time to be interrupted every single time the development team does something, right? In real life, in most of the cases, what happens is that there are certain times of the day or certain days during the sprint in which the product owner receives a demo from the team with the functionalities developed, and he or she can give feedback. In the same time, it also gives the time for the product owner to do testing, to make some small adjustments if that's the case. So when the product owner gets his demo, well, the product owner gets her demo as soon as the user story is done. And if that's not possible, set up some times which are not just before the sprint demo, please. 5. Who attends the sprint review? The sprint review ideally is open for everyone. I know companies that have done sprint reviews in which they invite all their colleagues. And you may be thinking, oh my God, what a waste of time. Actually, it is not. Because the moment we make it more open and we invite more people, then it makes us more structured because we don't want to waste anyone's time. From the Scrum perspective, the sprint review is an open door ceremony. Question number 6. What is the agenda of the sprint review? We start with reviewing the goal. We demonstrate the work that has been completed, only the work that has been completed. We gather feedback, and there are multiple ways of gathering the feedback. You can have post-its, you can have some notes, you can use a software if you are doing it remotely. Then you're going to discuss the work that hasn't been done, eventually raise some risks and impediments that the Scrum team has faced. Maybe we get some feedback, especially if you have the management on, they may be able to help with it. And if you are using Scale Agile framework, now is the moment to review your product increment objectives. But if not, you can just go directly into the next sprint overview. Of course, you didn't do the planning yet, so we can't provide too many details about what's coming next, but we can give a sneak peek about what's coming next because we got the feedback, we done the product backlog refinement, so we can have an idea about where we are going next. Question number 7. How do you provide feedback during the sprint review? Because if everyone starts to give their opinion during a demo, that's gonna be painful and long. The things that work very well for me, have some post-its. If you are in the same room, put the name of the person that provides feedback. I know that goes slightly against anonymous feedback, but ideally you will want to know who gave you that feedback to can ask for more details, because when we are in the middle of a demonstration and we try to listen, we just take some notes. We don't make an elaborative document about what we meant. So if we want more details, we need to know who wrote it to ask for more details. If the team is familiar with Confluence, with wikis, with other way of storing the documentation, you can simply make an online document and ask everyone to add the information there in a structured way. And that being said, sometimes you can add like the functionalities that you are going to present, ask them to give feedback in the exact section of the functionality, and you can even split it further: good feedback, negative feedback, constructive feedback, new ideas, because all these things are going to make it easier to plan the sprint planning afterwards. Now, question number 8. Who leads the sprint review? We know that the Scrum Master is the facilitator of the team, and the product owner is the one that has all this information, has a very clear idea about where the product should go. So the Scrum Master facilitates our sprint review, making sure that we are on track, keeping the agenda, making sure people are prepared for it. making sure that the invites are sent out, people are attending, they don't have difficulties connecting. But when it comes to the scope discussions, making the demo, then that's up to the product owner. Of course, the team members are more than welcome to present. I've seen a lot of the product owners that prefer that the team is making the demo, so they get to have more of a feeling of the customer, they can receive feedback, they can get them more involved into it. Question number 9. How long the sprint review should last? Target for 1 hour, no more than 1 hour. And I can tell you that lately I'm targeting for half an hour, 45 minutes, just to keep it very simple, well structured, and to have more time in my agenda. Because if we spend so much time in meetings, when are we going to work? Question number 10. What should we prepare for the sprint review? And my favorite answer to this question is nothing. I love to prepare nothing for the sprint reviews. But you may say, but hold on, we need to do all this demo, risk, impediments, say what is coming up. Right. But if you are keeping your backlog, your Jira board, your Azure DevOps backlog up to date, it should always be ready to simply share your screen and have this information there. There is a field for the sprint goals. Use that field. Then when it comes to demonstrating the work done, you can see it from the backlog, the things that have been done and the things that are yet open. And you may need to teach the audience what means everything. For example, that a bar scratched through, that means that task is being done in Jira. But in that way, you don't have to prepare a presentation, right? And you can take them one by one from the top, the highest importance, and demonstrate each user story. Then when it comes to collecting the feedback, have one document that everyone knows they always go there to add the information. Now, that being said, let's go to question number 11. What is not a sprint review? Well, I can tell you that the sprint review is definitely not a testing session. Giving the software to the participants and giving them free hands to do whatever they consider, that's definitely not something that we are doing on the sprint review. Of course, we can always give them access to test, to check it out, to try it, but not in the sprint review, because if not, our meetings will go completely off-road. And even more, whenever we arrive to the sprint review, our stories already passed the testing, because we are doing a testing inside the sprint, making sure that the user stories that we are presenting as done in the sprint review, they are already respecting the acceptance criteria and they have been approved by the product owner. Then another thing that is not a sprint review is to do a demonstration from your local machine. And this is so common on software teams when we see that, yeah, it's done on a local machine. I'm showing you an application on a simulator. While this is very close to reality, it's not exactly what we will call work done, because there is a huge difference from doing something on your local environment, having something working on a simulator, to actually making it enabling for the use of our stakeholders in case that functionality has been approved for deployment. So, and sometimes whenever we are merging, whenever we are deploying these functionalities, there is a whole nother story, and you can be so dramatic that you may spend several days in bringing these done user stories into actually done. So don't do the demo from a local environment. And then what also is not the sprint review is a demo for the product owner. We already spoke about that. Now for the number 12, I have some tips for remote teams. Because if you are distributed all over the world, you will have a slightly different way of functioning. And now with COVID, we saw that a lot of teams have gone remote and it's working very well. So most probably our remote sprint reviews will increase. I will start it with recommending who is in the call. Especially if you have a large audience and if you don't know each other, it's good to have this warm introduction, breaking the ice, understanding who is there, what is everyone's role. Maybe that will help us to go ask for more details about a certain feedback after the meeting. And don't forget to spice up a bit to make it more dynamic, break the ice. Sometimes I see Scrum Masters that they even do a small exercise at the beginning of the sprint review to make people feel more comfortable, and not only to feel comfortable but also to be more talkative, because if they have a nice atmosphere, they feel welcomed, then we are receiving more and valuable feedback during our sprint review. And remember, that's why we do the sprint reviews. And if you are providing some information, some instructions, don't forget to share the screen and show exactly what you mean, because if we have a mix of people that some of them may be more familiar with the team, more familiar with the functionalities, some don't, it's always far easier to follow a voice and a screen exactly what we have to follow, what we have to do. And especially when it comes to giving feedback, show how you should log this feedback. Switching between screens takes a lot of time. So if you want to keep our sprint review exactly in 1 hour, even less, make sure, dear Scrum Master, that you make a list of who is sharing the screen. And ideally, we are going to have only one person that will share the screen. And even though we have multiple people presenting, it's going to be via the same screen. Now, the person that shares the screen, make sure that you have nothing popping up. And to easily achieve that, there is a do not disturb mode on both Windows and Mac, so you can do that very quickly. And then if you need to use more visuals, for example, if you use Zoom, it has an annotations, it has a mode where you can write on top. That may help people to follow easily certain functionalities, whatever you are talking about. So thank you so much for watching. I hope these questions are bringing you more clarity when it comes to the sprint review. I look forward to hear how you are doing your sprint reviews. And don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button. I will see you next week with another video.